Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everybody. We shall try to keep our meeting going as efficiently as possible. Thank you very much, Councillor Hinks. Welcome to tonight's Committee of the Whole meeting, and I will call it to order at this point. The procedure for tonight's meeting is as follows. I will ask the clerk to introduce the item, after which council will be given an opportunity to ask questions of staff. I will then ask the applicant to present their application, following which I will then invite public input. If you would like to address council, please come to the microphone, give us your name and address, and then your comments. We also ask that you limit your comments tonight to 5 minutes, unlike our public hearings where there's not the time limit. Committee of the Whole, there is a 5-minute time limit, except for those people who are the applicants. And the speaker light will show amber when you get to 1 minute, and when you get red, I'll pretty much just ask you to please finish at that point, but hopefully we won't have that happen. After everyone has had an opportunity to speak, I will ask the applicant to return to the microphone if there are questions to be answered. Just so those of you who may be making comments, if you do have a question, I'll write that down and I will ask that question on your behalf at the end of the public input. And then I'll turn the matter over to council for a decision. So that's how we'll operate tonight. Madam Clerk, would you please introduce the first item?
My pleasure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This first item is 4655 Cordova Bay Road. It's a subdivision development variance and rezoning application. This item was previously before council on September 28th. The council did recommend that it be postponed to allow for a full council to consider this matter. The report of the Director of Planning is recommending the council support option 1 as outlined in the report, and the council's postpone further consideration of the application for proposed 8-lot residential subdivision to allow the applicant to reconsider the proposal. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Council, do you have any questions of staff? Seeing none, we shall invite the applicant to come back. I think in all fairness, applicant, because you have been asked to return after having made an extensive presentation a few weeks ago, perhaps you may wish to hit up on the highlights and not have to completely redo your presentation. Thank you.
I was so excited to bore you with my whole application again now. But I will do the major changes. So my name is Nick Murray, I'm planner of Leinster Consulting, and I'll be going through the project as you guys have previously seen weeks ago. We know the location. It's off Cordova Bay Road North, and it's a long, slender waterfront subdivision that runs to the natural boundary. We didn't have a dedicated site plan that was clear, so this time around I'm just going to run through. This is oriented horizontally, just due to the constraints of the PowerPoint. But beginning on the left side of the screen, there's the first lot. And it just runs linear through 7 into 8. And at the end there is the hammerhead turnaround for the fire access. The important parts are the covenant areas, which make up 20% of the site. And those are for environmental protection. And then as we see towards the water on the right-hand side is that large 20-meter road dedication that the approving officer has requested. Along that vein, we doing a direct comparison to Living Lane. Identical zoning, same size property, same density, bare land strata. The difference is their average lot size is higher due to some common area on the foreshore, but our smallest lots are larger than their smallest lots. So we'll come back to that in just a minute. We've seen these renderings. One thing that we really like to do actually is between now, if we move forward to public hearing, is we actually want to tidy the streetscape up, move that lot, the house back a little bit, and do a more comprehensive streetscape rendering showing the screen that we're going to propose for lot number 1, so just keep that in mind. We've seen these renderings of the interior of the site. The parking, as per discussions with engineering, we've removed those lots that were, the parking stalls that were in the hammerhead turnaround. We still have double the required parking as per the zoning bylaw. We still would like to have engineering entertain the idea of parking in there, but we'll continue that dialogue. Sightlines, we meet the required sightlines for the geometric design of Canadian roads. We've gone over the project benefits. One of the community amenities is going to be the installation of a new bus stop to encourage some transit usage. Our comprehensive community engagement that we've undertaken, just want to highlight that the initial discussions, we did change the number of lots from 10 down to 9. We reduced the height. We changed the zoning to make it more restrictive on setbacks to allow a covenant area on our neighboring properties. And and we increased the number of covenant areas. So that was in response to kind of the consultation that I took. From there, it was very positive feedback we received. The results were 26 properties in support of 8 lots, 2 lots in Oceanwood preferred, 7 lot proposal. And the community association was in support of the proposal, but they have a standing policy where no variances, they don't approve projects that require variances. We appreciate those comments. It's a little bit ironic just because all properties in the area are too small for the zone, so you know, it's not going to alter the variances we're after, are not going to alter the character of the neighborhood. I'll show you a slide that confirms that. Some of the highlights, we have a 1-to-1 tree replacement for the 7 lots, 2-to-1 for the 8th, plantings of boulevard trees, marine, backshore, and steep slope protective areas secured by covenant. One thing that we made a change is we'd like to offer or include ourselves in the native plant salvage program. We'd like to have this district volunteers come through the property and capture any species that have been deemed of value to be replanted on site or elsewhere. We commit to a pocket park construction as shown on the right-hand side, and that would be in that road dedication. An estimated $100,000 for cash into the parkland, built green gold standard, solar ready, a deconstruction of the existing structure, and using permanent pavers on private property. We can't on the Winslow Road dedication. This is largely the same. One thing I added is the 7-lot proposal. One thing that came up was the retention of additional trees, and we reduced the number of lots. And so what we've determined is that the 8-lot proposal, an estimated number of 66 trees will be lost. 23 are in the maybe zone, and 110 will be retained. On 7 lots is a difference of 6 trees on the for sure that will be removed. And so we're planning to do a 2-to-1 replacement on those 6 trees. So we feel that the difference between the 2 lots is not significant in terms of.
Well, sir, I'm not trying to get the chair's attention. Please go ahead.
And the reason why is because most of the tree retention is not happening in the interior lot lines. It's on the rear and front setbacks, which will not change with the reduction of one lot. This is the foreshore area, the setbacks. I just want to display that the proposed lot number 8 is set well back from the geotechnical setback line and the marine setback line. This is the area behind lot number 8 that we're proposing to do environmental remediation under the guidance of Swell Environmental, which is a registered biologist. In terms of the stormwater management, so Schedule H of the subdivision bylaw states that the reduce, essentially the post-development runoff of the site has to equal the pre-existing condition. And so through that, we're proposing, as we talked about in the previous meeting, there will be a drainage pipe stub to the neighboring property. When that gets developed, we'll be able to hook into our system if that's required. We are going to be installing storage tanks on the individual lots that will have a released flow to meet that pre-existing development conditions. But it's not a huge concern just considering how close it is to the ocean. There isn't a lot of, because it's going to be piped down the municipal road, there's not a lot of environmental streams that it runs through that it's going to do erosion. And on top of that, we're doing energy dissipation measures in the just before where it flows into the ocean. So that flow will be slowed down and the energy will be taken out of it. And that drainage head wall is outside of the EDA. So I want to talk a little bit about lot averaging. I know this came up last time. So it's, so the LGMA Guide for Approving Officers is a document written by planners, lawyers, engineers. It's the guide for subdivision approving officers. And it's the go-to reference manual that it's used across the province. Maddie puts this course on. Almost all approving officers go through this program. And it very clearly states how lot averaging works. And if I'm permitting me just to read sections of it, the approving officer may approve a Bearland strata subdivision containing strata lots of less than the permitted size in the zoning bylaw. However, the total area of land in the plan, excluding access routes divided by the number of strata lots, must not be less than the average lot permitted from the zoning bylaw where specified, or otherwise the minimum lot size specified. So because the Saanich zoning bylaw does not specify an average lot size, it defaults to the minimum lot area. And that's where the regulations for Bearland stratas come in, is that you can have some under, you can have some over, as long as the common property and the individual lots average out to above the minimum. and it does in our case. Bill Buellhauser is one of the most respected municipal lawyers in the province. Many municipalities use him for legal advice. In his we call it Bill's Bible in planner speak, because it's the go-to guide for all sorts of planning and subdivision regulations. And he was one of the authors of the Guide for Approving Officers, but he confirms this. And I want to bring up this court case, and I don't mean it to, I just want to be really careful and real open and transparent. I don't mean this to use this as like, council doesn't have the power to do something. That's not my intention behind this. All it is there's a court case in 1983 that states that if a bare land strata is not defined in, or is defined in OCP, you can't govern where that goes. So let's just enter the realm of the hypothetical for me for just one moment. If you had a local area plan, which forms part of the OCP, that says the Cordova Bay neighborhood cannot have lot averaging, council doesn't actually have that power over the approving officer to state that. The approving officer can still approve a bare land strata plan, even if the local area plan doesn't say it can go there. Now, where council retains its power is in the rezoning. That's a discretionary approval of council, and you guys can, approve what you want based on a policy decision. So, the local area plan does permit lot averaging, and that's why the staff report from planning is a little bit, it doesn't match the regulations of the province, because even if they wanted to exclude the area, as was stated in the staff report, there isn't the legislative power to do so. The court struck down the municipal power to exclude lot averaging in local area plans. Just want to throw that up there for your consideration. This is the neighboring Lavinia Lane. 5 of our 8 lots are bigger than theirs and wider than theirs. So I show this just as an example that they achieved lot averaging. Their smallest lot was 580 meters squared, well below the 930. So this is where we're struggling to reconcile the policy position that is being taken on excluding our proposal from lot averaging. At this time, I'm happy to take any questions.
Councilor Murdoch?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and sorry to be disruptive of the presentation earlier. So my question, really what we're asked to consider here is whether or not council agrees with the staff on strat lot size averaging and wants to see this adjourned to sort that out. One of the questions that comes out of that falls out of that potentially, if we go from 8 to 7, is the number of trees that are lost. Now you're saying that there's only a 6-tree difference, but you can probably understand how I'm having a hard time imagining how that could be when we're talking about a whole new house. Maybe do you have a map where you can show us that?
So the issue is, so if we're reducing down to 7 lots, the first question that comes up is which lot is going to be removed? And once it is removed, what happens to that space? That space gets added likely to the other 7 lots, which means the lot building footprints expand, because we're not at the point where we're building anything. Obviously, as applicants who want to construct a beautiful subdivision, as was done in the area, we're going to retain as many trees as we possibly can. But so, I've actually done a worst case scenario here on 8 and 7 lots, saying if we're building to the maximum allowable building envelope, this is what it will look like. But obviously you can't, take my word for it, but we don't want to do that. I mean, that doesn't make financial sense for the area. If you're looking at competing products, they retain trees as much as possible to create a desirable subdivision. So I don't know if that's helpful, but.
Well, it is in one respect. I mean, what I'm having a hard time trying to understand is that when you're given the additional area to work with, obviously that gives you more flexibility in how you site the house. So that was how I was trying to understand how you would arrive at 6 versus 12 or 18.
Yeah, so it's based on, and apologies to the chair, it's based on a worst case scenario, but if you look on the north end of the site, lots number 7 and 8, no trees are coming out of either one of those lots.
Right.
So it's really clumped in the center within those interior lot lines that's where the movement's going to happen. And on the front and rear, I mean, you can save a little bit by putting your driveways in different spots, and we're absolutely going to try to finagle where the driveways go to retain trees. That's of course, but they're clumped in a certain area. and it's the road dedication, the road that's taking up most of the trees.
So the other issue that you mentioned right off the top was the setback, the first property, and that you're looking at ways to mitigate the impact of that setback. Could you tell us a little more about how things might change if you were moving to a public hearing?
Yeah, so through the chair, the property, the bottom lot on the south side of the site, the immediate neighbor to the right, we worked really hard with them because they have concerns over the siding of that house. So we're going to secure that footing, the footprint by covenant. And we're still working on what that's going to look like with the neighbor. But what we'd like to try and do is depending on the square footage that we can get out of it, is pull that house back from the street and do a better landscape plan for the street, just to screen it so it's not as visible.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murdoch. Councillor Brown?
So my mic's not working. I'll just speak loudly. My question also is around the trees, and I did send you a note. Because the trees are clustered kind of in that area, I'm worried about blow down, and then what I'd like you to tell me is how many protected trees are going to be lost in building envelopes and the service corridors?
Through the chair, I don't have that answer as to exactly how many of them are protected, how many are not, and I'm happy to provide that.
I'd like that, please.
Should this advance, that I can get you that very quickly. That's not a problem. Now, the blowdown effect, the tree replanting will be under the guidance of a certified arborist, and we're going to engage in biologists as well. So once we know how many lots we have going forward, where the building footprints will go exactly, then the replantings will be done on that 1-to-1, 2-to-1 basis, hopefully to cluster around and protect the existing trees.
Yeah, so I get that, but what we've seen in some instances is that when you take, the forest, they all support each other. So when you start taking a tremendous amount down in a specific area, you could have blowdown. But I'll look forward to you telling us a little bit more. And then the front lot, was there any consideration of maybe flipping it so that you had more green space beside that lot on the lane, as opposed to the green space on the left-hand side as you came in?
Through the chair, that area to the left is actually, it's covenant, it's an environmentally sensitive area.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So that's why, and also it was to keep the road so that you didn't get a direct sight line through the site, so kind of
Oh, right. Okay, that's good.
Back to your point about the blowdown, we are doing that 6.6 meter covenant area on the east side of the property, plus prevailing winds in the area do often come off the ocean, and there's going to be a large area that is covenanted. We're talking almost 1,800 square meters of area covenanted on the water that will retain the trees that may dampen some of those prevailing winds.
Okay, my last question is around access down to the waterfront. Has your client thought about perhaps some amenity feature to get people down to the water?
Through the chair, so this was it's a little bit of a sore topic, but we were required to provide a 20-meter road dedication, and there is no access to the water from our site. It's 22 meters down a cliff.
Okay.
On the neighboring property, it actually levels out quite a bit. So what we proposed was to give 10 meters on our property, and when that gets subdivided, 10 meters in their property, and then you can actually construct beach access on the neighboring lot. So when the approving officer gets that application, they may request an additional dedication down to the water, but there's no access from our property, unfortunately.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Sanders, and then Councillor Haynes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a few comments on things you said. You referred to the hammerhead as the fire access, for that purpose. Is that correct?
Through the chair, it's for a turnaround, not for the fire truck access from the neighboring property. They'd have to come down. It's a suitable fire
It's for a
turnaround.
turnaround, so where is your visitor parking?
The visitor parking will be largely on each individual property.
Okay, so there's no extra visitor parking, just on the office. That's one. The other thing, I don't know if I heard you correctly, you talked about the driveways and stuff being permeable, but the roadway not being, as you said, it was a municipal road. Isn't it a strata road?
Through the chair, no, it's a municipal standard road, so it's fully dedicated to the district, and so.
That's fine, I thought it was a strata, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Murray. I don't see any further questions at this point, so, oh, I'm so sorry, Councilor Hain, my apologies.
I'll take the hint to be brief. There's a number of things about this proposal that I quite like. And there's some that I'm puzzled by. Reflecting what my colleague, Councillor Brownhoff, mentioned in concern for trees. I too have concern for trees, and yet I see that road dedication that's slipped on to the property through the provincial dedication of a road right-of-way to water. If that was ever converted to a road, instead of the term you use like a pocket park, then more trees would come down. So that would increase the risk of more blowdown, because that provincial road allowance is right where there's a current major set of trees. I did take the opportunity to walk this property. I missed the meeting, I went there, and just past those trees is a very severe drop-off. So I wondered too about that provincial road requirement, why it's being loaded onto this property when it could have been shared, because I do understand the property next door is lived in by an elderly lady, and she is contemplating selling that, and that would come forward as another development. So there could be sharing of that load there, particularly with the water access on that property. So that part of this application puzzles me a little bit, why the road allowance was put onto this, with the idea in mind that it possibly isn't a road allowance, it's actually the use of a road allowance, provincial road allowance, to increase our park. Do you have any comment about that? I'm not sure.
Through the chair, the approving officer is a provincially appointed officer that doesn't, he wears two hats. One works for the municipality, the other works for the province, doesn't necessarily answer to council in that regard. But they can ask for 20 meters, which I understand is the maximum. We're happy to comply, provided that we get, the required number of lots to make this economically feasible. And sure, of course, from the applicant's point of view, we prefer to give 10, and the neighbor give 10. We fear it's a more equitable distribution of the dedication, but we just speaking honestly, we've tried to play ball as much as we can, giving as much as we can, and we just need to move forward with the date to make it feasible.
So I guess I didn't articulate my question clearly enough. Is the approving officer thinking that there will really be a road there in the future, or is it to establish a green space using that regulation? That's a question I have later on. Maybe we'll talk this. You can't answer that. You don't know what's in the mind of the approving officer.
Through the chair, we met with the approving officer many times, and my understanding of the Land Act is that under Section 75, every so often, the approving officer, I think it's every 400 meters, now if I'm correct, every 400 meters, there must be access to the water. We applied for relief from the full 20. We were denied, but this happens.
Okay.
It happens.
I'll move on to another couple of quick points. When you include that amount of road dedication with the covenanted areas, what's the total percentage of the development that is dedicated to green space? When I read 7.2b indicates set aside environmentally important areas, etc. 5.1 to encourage indigenous plants and species. So when you put those two numbers together, what is the total amount of land being set aside here as we could call covenanted or road dedication green space?
Through the chair, so that road dedication represents 930 meters squared, which is an entire RS12 lot. If someone can divide 930 by 12,200, then I can tell you.
I think it's about 35% in total from my eye, but
yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, existing is 22%, and whatever 930 is of 1220.
So when I read that, I see a very generous statement here on the land set aside. So I think this is in keeping with the lots around. When I see that option 2 includes going to gold status, built green gold status, and that's not in option 1. Sorry. Actually, I didn't have a question there. I'm articulating my ideas. No, thank you very much. I'll stop.
Thank you, Councillor German, for that comment, and thank you, Councillor Haines. Apologies for missing over you. I think at this point, Mr. Murray, I'll ask you to please have a seat, but please be aware we may ask you to come back. Thank you very much. Are there any members of the public who would like to address Council on this matter? Calling for a second time, are there any members of the public who would like to address council on this matter? I see someone coming forward. Good evening, welcome to the meeting. If you could just state your name and your address for the record, sir.
My name is Jim McLaren. I'm the developer of the piece of property beside this particular piece here. I'd just like to say I think they've done a great job in what they've done. There's a few things that I have a bit of concern with too, and I think they're trying to eliminate those concerns. I read the planner's report today that stated they were thinking they should reduce it to 7. I'm not too sure if that's right. I think the 8 would fit in there all right. I don't think we should be worried too much about the trees that are on that other road that you're talking about. You're going to get some blow down, and it's going to happen. And if you look at the development we did at Mount Douglas Crossroad here a few years ago, where we cut down trees. You can't even see where they're cut down now. All you have to do is plant a few more. They grow, and it turns into another forest again. I think it's probably good that they're planning a road into that for water access there. I'm not too. And my family owns a couple of lots on the other side, down in the waterfront, and people continually try to get to the property, to their property, down to the waterfront. Difficult. It would probably be good if they did have some sort of a road access that would work in the future. I don't know what it will have, what kind of an impact it will have on the rest of the subdivisions there, but I think that's good for development too. So I think they've done a pretty good job with it. I wouldn't want to see it. I'd like to see it go forward, and maybe my good friends could work with us and just maybe coordinate what they're going to do with the property to the east of them. And I think they've done a good job. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McLaren. Any further members of the public? Second time, any members of the public wishing to comment on this topic? And third time, anybody else wishing to comment? Thank you. At this point, I shall close public input and turn it over to council for a decision. Councillor Herman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to move the staff recommendation of option 1. If there's a second, I'll speak to it.
Seconded by Sanders. Open to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. The applicant gave us some information about covenant areas and the responsibilities of the approving officer and so forth. There is a covenant area here that's very substantial, but it's also an unbuildable area. It's essentially a cliff going down to the ocean, and it's not feasible that that would be in any way part of the building scheme. As to the approving officer, of course, as stated by the covenant, the approving officer may approve a lot averaging. He isn't required to approve such a lot averaging. In this case, for me, the lot averaging here is a way of maximizing the number of units on the property. There are several factors that cause me some concern with that. First of all, the lot averaging requires a number of variances as a result of the lot averaging the way it is applied. As the staff report points out, if you had 7 units, and this is not an unattractive development, there are those variances and other things, 7 units would remove the requirement for any of those variances. And it would be substantially in compliance with the normal setbacks and everything that we would expect. Secondly, this is not the worst place with density in terms of climate change impacts and automobile congestion, but it's also not the best place. It's not a place where I would be particularly inclined to try to maximize the number of lots that you can put in there. I think I might be able to live with 7 units. Those 7 units are probably going to almost entirely be automobile in terms of how they're used. 8 is not a huge change, but it's a way of adding further development in Saanich and in the region that contributes both to climate change issues and issues of congestion. And at some point we have to do that. If we're going to stop doing that, rather, if we're gonna bring those things under control. The issue of blowdown is a real one. Yes, there are breezes off the ocean from time to time, but the prevailing wind in that area for most storms, as for all of the area around here, is from the southwest. It isn't from the ocean, it's from the land. And well, when you get blowdown, yes, you can plant other trees, but blowdown increases the risk of further loss, and those trees are not planted as full-size trees. So a one-to-one replacement doesn't replace what you have lost for a very considerable period of time. I think 7 lots would result in a better development than we have in front of us. As to the building envelopes, that's a decision that council can control when it makes the decision to rezone. Council has virtually entire power to decide within some very broad limits what it would like to allow to happen in the community through the process of rezoning. And then at the subdivision stage, after that, the approving officer comes in. So, you know, I think the proponent rather has done a lot of work. It's not an unattractive development. I think it would be a much better development at 7 lots rather than 8. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bryson and Councillor Haynes.
Thank you, Chair.